Hey, I'm good. Steve, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. It's great to finally meet you. How's everything been going?
Yes, yeah, it's been going good. It's been a journey.
Yeah, of course.
As many people probably say about applying to law school. But yeah, it's been good. It's been good. I've learned a lot, and I'm actually so glad our call is this week rather than last week because things have changed actually.
Oh, what's changed? Tell me more.
Yeah, so I actually recently have decided I was going to apply this fall, but I have decided to wait and apply next cycle instead. It was a difficult decision. I'm like many people, I want to just like get it done, but I'm a non-traditional student, and so I'm a little bit older, so I've realized that sometimes you have to be patient and sometimes things don't always go as you've planned.
Of course, of course. Well, it sounds like you're making the right decision and better to apply when you can do it the right way and do it early.
Yes. Yes. I was one of those people that I've so I'll give you just like a little bit of context to kind of tell you, how I've gotten to where I'm at. So when I was in undergrad, I wanted to go to law school. So this has been a 15, 20-year journey now. Um, I was an economics major. I wanted to go to law school. A number of things happened that it never worked out. So I didn't pursue law. After I graduated, I fell into media and marketing. And here I am 15 years later. Like many people, 2020 forced me into some deep introspection. And, I decided to revisit this idea of law school. So I took a community college class about law and ethics, which is what I'm really interested in, is that kind of intersection between law and morals, and kind of reignited that passion for law. And so this spring, I took that community college class. I decided in April that I was going to apply to law school. I bought a self-guided study book. I signed up for the June LSAT. I divided the number of days from April to the June LSAT by the number of pages in the study book and said, great, this is what I'm going to do. Well, of course, a few weeks later, I got very frustrated and very discouraged and I thought that there was something broken with my brain because I couldn't understand why I was getting some of these questions wrong. So I started looking at other resources, found your podcast, was really drawn to the sort of no nonsense type approach to learning about the LSAT. So I signed up. I listened to the podcast for a week or two, signed up for the Supreme course, had started studying for a few weeks, and quickly realized this was not a process that I could speed up. I had to just go at my own pace. And so what I wanted to ask you today was for someone like me who's just sort of recently decided, hey, I'm actually not going to try to apply. So I obviously did not take the LSAT this past weekend. I pushed my date back to October, but now having made the decision to wait, I've got even more time. So do you have any advice for someone like me who's maybe now got some more time? I own my own business. So for me, anytime I take away from my business, I have to be really like mindful about it. I have about eight to 10 hours a week that I can study right now. And I feel good about committing to that. But do you have any advice for someone like me who's kind of regrouping and hitting pause? So what are kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, kudos to you for making this decision, especially if you have 8, 10 hours a week. That would be tough to cram with that limited time. But over the course of several months, there's a lot you can do in just a short amount of time every single week. I agree, of course, you want it to be as efficient and effective as possible. So you're in a fantastic position. You can divide and conquer, but doing it the right way, not by numbers of pages in a book, as you indicated before. Yeah. So this opens up so much for you. I mean, we're speaking now in mid-June, October, right? 4 months away. A lot you can do between now and then. So what I'd suggest is you take it slow. You carve out one piece at a time and truly master it. So maybe 1 week has a logic games focus. Another week has a logical reasoning focus. I say focus because you can make it the majority of what you do, but not the entirety, because you don't want to feel rusty. You want some variation. You can get more granular where you say logic games focused on ordering games specifically, or logical reasoning focused on strengthening questions specifically. But you can still mix and match here and there as well. And then you can do related problems out of the exams. You can watch related videos in the course library. You can attend related classes that are happening every week as well.
Okay. So that, because as I was sort of trying to plan out how am I going to study now, and even potentially taking the LSAT now next year, I'm not necessarily committed to any type of date. So I'm already finding myself getting a little bored, is not the right word, but I've been really focused on logic games, and I am kind of like, I want to like switch it up a little bit. So you think that's okay to do? Not say I'm just going to focus on logic games for 3 months, get it right, and then move on.
Oh no, 3 months on logic games alone is way too much. You need exposure to the other sections as well. I mean, you don't want to wait to do reading comprehension until 2 months before the exam, or 1 month. I mean, to truly master logic games, how do we define mastery, right? If you want to achieve perfection every single time, it's difficult for virtually anybody, myself included. You can get perfection sometimes once you really master it, but at a certain point, you got to say, I've gotten enough right now to feel reasonably competent. I'll continue refining in the following weeks and months, but time to change it up, do some logical reasoning for a bit, see what that's like. Keep everything feeling fresh.
Okay, great. That's really good advice. So I just have a couple other questions here that I wrote down. Oh, I wanted to also ask about like the test mindset of when you're taking the LSAT and you're reading a question. Is the mindset, for example, with like a logical reasoning question, do you think, oh, this is a sufficient assumption question? Or does it just eventually become more natural that you just kind of understand the question, you've read through the stimulus, and now, you're ready to answer the question. You kind of don't necessarily think, oh, this is a necessary assumption question or whatever.
For the majority of logical reasoning questions, I would still go in reading the question stem and identifying the question type. Okay. Because there are different approaches for sufficient assumption versus unrelated question types, or marginally related, tangentially related question types. I know, for example, sufficient assumption often can involve formal logic. So there's a specific way to go about it. So it is useful to know question types. Just like for logic games, it's useful to know, okay, this game has ordering elements. Ordering games usually involve a diagram that looks something like this, perhaps with slots, right? So that's helpful. And when you see a question stem that seems unfamiliar at first glance, it can be confusing. LSAC gets creative with their question stems sometimes. But if you could say, hey, you know what? They're just asking me to ID the flaw. Fantastic. Flaw questions may involve classic logical fallacies, or we're going with the mindset they've made some kind of ridiculous error. We don't know what exactly it is yet till we read the stimulus, but we're going in with that critical eye knowing something is wrong from the start.
Okay. And so my target score is like 168. Is I would feel confident in my application if I could score around a 168. Do top test takers, well, I know that top test takers, if you're going for over 170, I assume that you answer all, those people are able to answer all questions on the LSAT. And I assume that with time and with practice, you get quicker and you're able to get through all the sections. Obviously now I'm not able to do that. But if my target score is a 168, does that mean I should aim to answer all questions on the test?
I would still attempt everything. I would still attempt everything, really, because you need a buffer. You need a buffer. If you consider how many questions you might answer incorrectly, and then you have to account, well, you have those plus the ones that you're leaving blank, or not leaving blank, but rather just guessing on. You have a 1 in 5 shot, maybe. You need to answer everything. You could do the calculations and see how your practice tests go, but it's very rare. I'd suggest for anybody aiming above 160 to leave out something.
Okay. That's good to know. I wasn't sure, and obviously my diagnostic test, I actually got worse the more I studied, which was really discouraging. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's no way. But now that I have more time, I feel better about being able to get to the point where I can answer all the questions in 35 minutes. So I just have one more question about if you have any tips on how to keep your study notes organized. I just have sort of a spiral notebook right now. And as I'm going through your videos and your workshops, I'm just sort of dating, whenever I watch the video and then, making some notes. Do you have any other tips on how to keep study notes organized, especially over potentially a longer period of time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of students have taken different approaches, and you can see a lot of those in a lot of the classes. People will walk through their review processes. Some people are really into spreadsheets. Other people are really into Google Docs. Some people like a notebook, like a spiral bound, like you indicated, or a moleskin or something. There's no one particular way. Digital is often nice just because it's more searchable, easier to find things. So you might consider switching to that. But the best one is the one that you'll, of course, keep up with the most consistently. And maybe you'll have separate notebooks for logic games versus logical reasoning versus reading comprehension.
Okay, great.
I had one more comment for you, actually.
Yes, please.
You asked about, do I go in to a logical reasoning question with that mindset, this is sufficient assumption? I think what you might have been getting at relates to like how mechanical can the process be? Was that kind of where you were coming from?
Yes. And I'm a very sort of mechanical type person. And so I'm like, I want the order. I want you to tell me how to think about it. But as I've listened to your podcast and to some of the other workshops already, I'm like, I have to kind of find my own way, but I'm curious to hear more.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly it. So mechanical can only get you so far. Like if you stick with purely mechanical, you'd have a tough time breaking 160. Like, because a lot of the easier and moderate difficulty questions, that's enough. But the tougher questions require some adaptability, some flexibility, like the so-called curveball logic games, right? You can't stick with molds all the time. The molds will only work on the easier stuff. The tougher questions are the ones where you have to kind of get outside that box a little bit and make it your own. So of course, I've got plenty of step-by-step things to give you ideas. But of course, the step-by-step doesn't always survive contact with reality. So you need some flexibility when it gets more difficult. And you need to truly own the material and own an understanding of it for any of the sections.
Yeah. And I think that was really what I decided to wait and apply, because I realized that it wasn't the type of test that you could if you just did enough practice tests, you would figure it out. You really have to get inside your own brain and think about, okay, well, why did I think this was wrong? But also, why did I think this was right? I think that to me was like a light bulb moment, that it wasn't just get the right answer. It was try to understand your thought process for how you got to the right answer.
That's exactly it. Okay. So getting self-critical and looking at your thought process throughout is going to be key. It's not about just saying, okay, what's the formula for this question type? How can I diagram everything? You can't diagram everything. You have to actually understand what you're looking at.
Yes. Okay. I've got a long way to go.
But you've given yourself the time as well.
Yes. And it's taken a huge weight off, because now I think, okay, I've got the time, I can figure this out. And I'm so excited to get more into your workshops and into the videos. I mean, it is such a great way to study. And I love that it's not cookie cutter. Like, you don't say, oh, you just do this for 3 months and, you'll be great. Obviously you might get better, but yeah, I'm so appreciative of your course. Thank you.
Of course, I'm so glad to help. I'm glad we got the chance to connect today, and just reach out. Let me know if you need anything moving forward.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate it.
Of course, kid. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.